Good. I think we're going to get started. First and foremost, good morning, and thank you all for joining us today. It is such an honor to be joined by leaders from both chambers as we celebrate the 14th anniversary of the Affordable Care Act. Good intentions bring good policy, and it is because of the ACA that more than 20 million Americans have access to health care coverage today. But too often, we take for granted the true scope of the impact that this bill has had on families across the country, and myself included. I have a very close family member who was just days after Thanksgiving last winter diagnosed with cancer. And I have no doubt that because of her strength and her resilience that she ultimately will beat that diagnosis. And when she does, something that we've talked about often is that no insurance company will be able to discriminate against her because of that diagnosis. That is because of the Affordable Care Act. It's because of the work that Speaker Emerita Pelosi, President Obama, and congressional Democrats did to make this the law of the land. Because of the work that Leader Jeffries and Leader Schumer and current lawmakers, the leaders here this morning, have done and continue to do to enhance, to expand, and to protect the Affordable Care Act from attacks by extreme MAGA Republicans. So, with that being said, I will pass things on to someone who, of course, needs no introduction. Her masterful ability to lead the House of Representatives delivered the bill that we are celebrating today. I'm not the only one who believes that she is the greatest speaker in the history of our republic, and that is Speaker Emerita Pelosi.
Thank you very much, Joe. Thank you very much, Joe. I brought the gavel because today is actually the anniversary of Gavel Day. Of the gavel, of passing, of gaveling down the legislation on Saturday.
Remember what that was like? Banging the gavel.
And soon will be music to our ears once again, yes, Mr. Leader. Welcome back to the House side. It's an honor to be with you and our distinguished colleagues, some of whom were here at the time and had a part of it, all of whom have been a part of protecting the Affordable Care Act. Congressman Neguse has now in his new leadership further, he was in the leadership, now he's further in the leadership, but when as head of the DPPC, he initiated a mobilization among our members. So on Saturday, we will have events across the country. Leslie, where did Leslie go? Oh, thank you for Protect Our Care being so much a part of that. Because not only did the outside mobilization help us pass the legislation, Protect Our Care helped us save it from the destruction that was wrought by the Republicans after they took control of the Congress and what his name was President of the United States. So here we are celebrating President Obama's inspirational and strategic leadership. Harry Reid, rest his soul, so very, very important. Again, strategic in how we were able to, shall we say, reconcile our differences between the House and the Senate, and our members who were in the House so courageous to get this done. And what it means to the kitchen table of American people, no pre-existing conditions as a barrier to access to health care, no time limits, whether annual or lifetime limits on what they can do. I don't go any place in the country where people don't come up to me and say, you saved my grandchild's life, or you saved my wife's life. Not me, but all of us working together. Now we're under assault because in the budget they're going after again what Lauren Underwood was so successful in putting into the legislation in the previous Congress to expand the subsidies to include many more people under the leadership of President Biden. So President Obama, we could not have passed it without him. I'll just close by saying this on Gavel Day because we'll talk about it some more at the White House and then over the weekend. But the night we passed the bill on Gavel Day, he called me, he said, I'm happier today than I was the night I was elected President of the United States. And I said, well, Mr. President, I'm pretty happy too. But I'm not happier than when you were elected president, because if you weren't elected president, we wouldn't be having the opportunity to do this now. And so, again, it was a lot, House, Senate, of course, the White House in a very important way. So I'm very happy to observe this 14th anniversary. So happy for what it means in the lives of the American people. So ready to stave off any assault on it, and look forward to working with the outside mobilization, again, which helped pass it and which helped save it, and once again will not only grow it, but save it as well. With that, I'm pleased to welcome back to the House side a member that we are very proud of when he served in the House. He took the lead on so many things, but I was one of the minions following his lead on gun violence protection when we passed the most serious life-saving legislation in the history of our country, which we have to do again, the very distinguished Democratic leader of the Senate, Chuck Schumer.
Thank you, Nancy. It's great to be here. Thank you, and I want to thank Congressman Neguse. I guess this is his first time in his new role. Congratulations. Thank you. Oh, yes. See why he got where he did? Okay, but I want to welcome him, my good friend, fellow Brooklynite, great leader of the Democrats in the House, Congressman Jeffries, who will be holding that gavel, God willing, a short time from now. My dear friend, who I still speak to almost every day, Speaker Emerita, I always love that word, Pelosi.
It means happy.
And other things, too. My great colleagues from the Senate who are here, who played such an instrumental role in the ACA, Chair Murray, Chair Stabenow, and I think Senator Shaheen is going to come join us as well, and all of my friends from the House, too. Look, thanks to my House and Senate colleagues who are here today, we celebrate the 14th anniversary of the Affordable Care Act. And we mark not just how many people this historic law has helped, but make clear to the American people that the fight is not yet over. We learned that the hard way in the Senate. When I became leader in 2017, the other party, the Republican Party, was just hell-bent on repealing the law. I spent hours and hours and hours with my dear friend John McCain, walked him over from his office, and saw the historic thumbs down that kept the health care for tens and tens of millions of people. So we have to say two things. We, if you had a word for us, we want to expand ACA and cover more people. A word for them, they want to eliminate or certainly curtail ACA and dramatically limit health care to people. If you want to know, do the parties have differences? This is one of the biggest ones. Health care, probably the #1 issue that faces Americans. If you are ill, have a family member who's ill, a friend who's ill, you know the inability to get good health care as they get sicker and sicker just pulls at your heartstrings like just about nothing else. So we cannot be complacent. We can't be complacent in terms of preventing reduction or repeal of ACA. That's still on their agenda. For some reason, why they don't want people to have more health care is beyond me. But we also have to be strong in expanding ACA. And one of the key issues in this election will be health care for people, and we care about it a lot. So not only did the ACA survive after 2017 and the attempt to repeal it, which we won just by a little, the ACA not only survived, but stronger and better than ever. And because of investments we made, the Senate played a role, big role, I did, people here, in expanding it in the IRA. Premiums are less expensive than ever. And this past year, a record number of people enrolled in an individual plan in the marketplace. More than 21 million Americans now find affordable health care. Isn't that incredible? 50% higher enrollment than 4 years ago. So we haven't rested. And when we control the House, which we will, God willing, and the Senate and the presidency, you'll see that expansion grow further, without question. But 21 million Americans, is that a great thing? That is. And the ACA has also been important in addressing the racial disparities in our health care. Insulin caps are a huge help to communities of color who are disproportionately affected by diabetes. The number of uninsured Black Americans under the age of 65 has dropped more than 40% since the implementation of ACA, and Latinos saw the largest drop in people without insurance, from 40% to 24%. And thanks to the ACA, 6.1 million Latinos gained access to preventative services without out-of-pocket costs. These are very significant changes. You know, these are big numbers, but just think of it in terms of the individual families that can breathe a sigh of relief, that when they need some kind of health care, they can actually afford it and get it. It's a beautiful, beautiful thing. Well, Democrats will not stop fighting to reduce premiums, to keep down the cost of prescription drugs, where we made a great start in the IRA, to keep fighting to expand Medicaid to all the states. I think there are still 19 who don't expand Medicaid. And I'm confident we're going to move closer and closer and closer to our goal, that health care is a right for all Americans, and no person in this country should ever have to say they are sick because they cannot afford or get the health care they need. And now I am calling on my dear friend from Brooklyn, a great leader, and I call him almost as much as, no, even more now than I call Nancy. She's lucky. He's stuck. Our great leader, Hakeem Jeffries, from where? Where's he from? Brooklyn.
Well, good morning, everyone. It's an honor and a privilege to be here. Thank you, Leader Schumer. Certainly, thank you, Joe Neguse, for convening us. Thank you, Speaker Emerita Pelosi, the godmother of the Affordable Care Act, to Catherine Clark, to all of my colleagues in the House and the Senate. We gather here on this incredibly important day to commemorate the historic passage of the Affordable Care Act. From time to time in American history, as we've struggled between two different forces, those of us who want to move America forward and others who want to turn back the clock, there have been monumental moments of progress. Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, and the Affordable Care Act is squarely in that category. We're thankful that under the leadership and inspiration of President Franklin D. Roosevelt, Social Security was delivered to the American people. We're thankful that under the leadership of President Lyndon Baines Johnson, Medicare and Medicaid was delivered to the American people. The record will reflect that under the leadership of President Barack Obama and Speaker Pelosi, the Affordable Care Act, along with Harry Reid and Democrats in the House and the Senate, was delivered to the American people, and it has been transformative. The Affordable Care Act established once and for all in America and decisively that access to high-quality, affordable health care is not a privilege, it is a right. But it's a right that the extreme MAGA Republicans now want to take away from tens of millions of Americans in terms of access to health care, and more than 100 million Americans who, because of the Affordable Care Act, have protections from being discriminated against because of their pre-existing health care conditions. Extreme MAGA Republicans want to take away that protection. And it falls upon us as we commemorate this historic moment of the passage of the Affordable Care Act to protect, defend, and strengthen the Affordable Care Act, not just for years, but for decades to come. And that is our commitment under the continuing inspiration and leadership of Speaker Emerita Pelosi. That is our forever commitment to protect, defend, and strengthen the Affordable Care Act because it has made a decisive difference in the lives of the American people, and we will not let the extreme MAGA Republicans take it away. It's now my honor to yield to the distinguished gentle lady from the great state of Washington, Chairwoman Patty Murray.
Thank you so much, Leader Jeffries, and to everyone that is here today. You know, as we all know, the ACA has helped hundreds of millions of people get coverage, record numbers just this past year. But Republicans still do not get it, or they just don't care, because even now, the leader of the Republican Party, Donald Trump, is promising to end the Affordable Care Act and rip care away from countless people. And as always, Republicans are pretty much ready to fall in line. Senator Cruz already agreed that he would, quote, love to revisit ACA repeal. Let's be clear what that means. Ripping health care coverage away from people, sending costs skyrocketing, ending protections for pre-existing conditions. And of course, there is no replacement. There never was. Look, this is not my first rodeo when it comes to Republicans bent on destroying families' health care. Far from it. I was ranking member of the Health Committee during the Trump years, fighting back as they did everything they could to overturn and undermine the Affordable Care Act. Thank goodness we won, but I remember just how dangerously close they got. And make no mistake, even without a full repeal, the endless Republican sabotage was catastrophic. We saw the uninsured rate spike in Trump years, and that was by Republicans' own design. And now, despite how painful that was for families, Trump and Republicans are gearing up to do it again. Well, my message to Republicans on this ACA anniversary is simple. Do not test us. Do not test us. Democrats have been here before. We stood firm. We stood with patients and families, and we won. Not to mention, we made health insurance more affordable for millions when we passed the Inflation Reduction Act. So the difference is pretty clear. Republicans will make health care worse and more expensive. Democrats are going to make it better and lower costs. Thank you. With that, I have the honor to turn it over to Whip Clark.
Thank you, Senator. What an honor and a privilege to be here on this day of celebration. 14 years ago, America became a more just and a healthier place to live. And we have so many colleagues who we are indebted to for their work. The late, great Senator Reid, the work of all my colleagues, but none more than Speaker Pelosi, who gavelled in health care justice with the Affordable Care Act. And when she did that, she also gavelled in justice for American women. Because before the ACA, you could be denied health care coverage just for being a woman in this country. If your insurance had a lifetime cap, you could be on the hook for millions when you got sick. Breast cancer screenings, birth control, maternity care, they were all priced like luxuries, not like the basic necessities that they are. And today they are recognized as basic preventive health care. And under the ACA, nobody is subject to a lifetime cap. And being a woman is no longer a pre-existing condition. That's the difference between Democratic leadership that is in tune with the needs of the American people and Republican extremism. 14 years ago, we made clear that we would not accept a system that treats women as second-class citizens, that treats health care as a privilege for the wealthy. And under President Biden, Democrats fought to protect the ACA and won. We took on Big Pharma and won. We worked to get more people covered, and we enrolled more Americans than ever before. And today, 21 million Americans have the quality health insurance they need for their families through the ACA marketplace. But here we are, once again, facing a second class of health care for American women. as we see the GOP not only vowing once again to undo the ACA, but pursuing their march towards a nationwide abortion ban, to undoing the delivery of lowering costs, undoing that cap on insulin, doing everything they can to obstruct the negotiations with Medicare to lower the costs of prescription drugs. And we're here to say that we will not let them. We will continue to fight to expand coverage and to make sure that we defend reproductive freedom in this country and continue to lower costs. I remember in the Trump administration, the last attack on the ACA, and you could hear the phones ringing as I walked through the hallways of Longworth. The phones ringing from the American people saying, we will not go unheard. We will insist that you respond, that you make sure that we continue to have the coverage we need for our families, the security that the ACA gives us. We answered their calls, and we're going to answer their calls to any future threat to this. I am so grateful to my colleagues for being here, and it is my pleasure to turn the microphone over to Chairwoman Stabenow.
Thank you so much. Thank you. What a wonderful celebration. 14 years. 14 years. And I'm so proud and honored to have been there at the time, working with Senator Reid, working with our Speaker Pelosi, working with President Obama. This was a big deal. and it continues to be a big deal. And Republicans did not support it, even though it is a big deal for families. I wanted to mention just a focus on, there's so many pieces in the Affordable Care Act and so many ways that it made a difference. But as a member of the Finance Committee, I was focused on certain areas, including what would be essential benefits. And as has been said, being a woman essentially cuts you out of a lot of insurance, as that somehow being a woman is a pre-existing condition because you could get pregnant. And so I worked very hard to get maternity care, to get newborn care into essential benefits. But let me just share with you the debate when that happened. So we have language saying maternity care will be covered as essential benefit. And Republican colleagues on the Finance Committee, one in particular, made a motion to take it out. And he said, I didn't need maternity care. Why should this be included in my insurance? And I said, yeah, but I bet your mom did. Everybody looked around and smiled, and we kept essential benefits for women. The other was mental health care and addiction services, and making sure that mental health addiction treatment is in every single definition in the Affordable Care Act. This was historic. The other thing is making sure that this is truly affordable for Americans, and we've gone on to make sure it's even more affordable. So it's a big deal when we are looking at the fact that almost 13 million people would not have access to maternity services right now if it were not for the Affordable Care Act. It's a big deal that we are looking at a total of 46 million people having gained health coverage, health insurance coverage. 100 million people with pre-existing conditions that don't have to worry about what's going to happen to them. That's a big deal. And 40 states plus DC have expanded Medicaid. And shame on those who have not. And we will continue to push for that. But we aren't stopping, as you've heard today. Healthcare is a priority for us, whether it's healthcare above the neck or healthcare below the neck. Healthcare is a priority for us, and that's why we took on the drug companies, lowering prescription drug costs, and we are going to do more in that area, and comprehensive funding for mental health care in the community, which you're going to be hearing more about, and a commitment to protecting Medicare and Medicaid. And so what do the Republicans want? We know. It's Groundhog Day. One more time. President Trump says, let's repeal the Affordable Care Act. And they're ready to cut Medicare and Medicaid and Social Security and take away reproductive freedom by passing a national abortion ban. The American people deserve better. We're the firewall as Democrats, and we'll do everything possible to make sure that does not happen. And if we are in the majority in the House and Senate with President Biden, it will not happen as we go forward, because we put people first. And that's what it's all about. So it's my pleasure now to pass this to Chair of the House Democratic Caucus, Pete Aguilera. So. There you are.
Thank you so much, Senator, for your leadership. And we're here to celebrate this 14 years, standing on the shoulders of the work that late Senator Harry Reid and our speaker, our forever speaker, Nancy Pelosi, did. And her legacy is why we are here to celebrate. There's not too much that I can add to what's already been said, but I did want to focus on one thing, that there are more Latinos enrolled in health insurance today than ever before because of this monumental legislation. That peace of mind and quality, affordable health care is especially important. We've seen a 53% increase in Latino enrollment since President Biden took office. When the ACA was first enacted, it represented a commitment to everyone in this country, regardless of race or zip code, that you would have the ability to access affordable and quality health care. Today, that promise still stands, and millions of families have access to premiums as low as $10 a month. Americans with pre-existing conditions are no longer denied coverage. Seniors can save on prescription drugs, and out-of-pocket costs are becoming lower and lower for everyday Americans. As we look to the next 14 years, we recommit ourselves to defending and strengthening the ACA, leaving no one behind and making sure that we have a more equitable healthcare system. Even as extreme MAGA Republicans double down in their relentless pursuits of ripping health care from working families, House Democrats will make sure that we never stop fighting to protect our communities and the ACA. With that, I'll turn it over to Assistant Democratic Leader Joe Neguse.
Thank you. Well, certainly couldn't have said it any better than Chairman Aguilar did, and I think it's a great segue into questions. Max.
So, yeah, a lot of this has talked about how Republicans want to take away health care, Democrats want to protect that. You know, with the election coming up, we've seen some polling which confuses Democrats, where people say they're better off under former President Trump and Republicans than they currently are under President Biden. How do you plan to make that contrast more clear on the campaign trail, obviously with the messaging chair for House News? What needs to change for Democrats to get that polling and those numbers in a different way?
It's a great question. Since I'm no longer the messaging chair, I'll turn it to DPCC co-chair Trahan, who I think is uniquely positioned to answer that question.
Well, thank you, Joe. Thank you, Max. We're going to go tell the story. You know, I don't think people sort of understand how under threat their health care coverage is in this country, but they know how transformative the ACA was to their family. If you grow up in a family that lives paycheck to paycheck, health care costs are make or break. If you have a family member with a pre-existing condition, just remember how important the 2018 midterm election was and how scared people were that their health care coverage would be threatened. My dad has MS, and he was on the campaign trail with me every day saying you must go and protect our health care coverage. And it's just a message that's so resoundingly clear, and it's incumbent on us in these next 8 months to tell the American people that we are trying to grow and expand and add more people to health care coverage, while the Republicans are actively trying to dismantle and take that away. And then what that means to your family, what that means to the costs, what that means to the threat of not being able to get a doctor's appointment or the treatment that you need for a chronic condition. So we've got plenty of material, plenty of stories to tell. We have been defending ACA for the last 14 years since it was passed, and that's the story that we're going to make sure people understand heading into this election. Thanks.
Questions? Yes.
Catherine Swartzen with Notice. Wondering if President Biden is reelected and a Democratic majority in Congress, you know, several of you talked about expansion for ACA, but when it comes to specific policies, what does that expansion look like?
DPCC Co-Chair Underwood led the last expansion when we last had the majority, and so perhaps she can answer that question.
Thank you, Leader Neguse. So listen, in the American Rescue Plan, we had the first opportunity to expand the ACA when we extended the premium tax credits, made them more generous and available to more Americans. And as a result, 4 out of 5 enrollees on the marketplace can find a plan for $10 or less a month. This has been extremely popular, so much so that we extended those tax credits in the summer of 2022 with the Inflation Reduction Act, and those tax credits are set to expire in 2025. We have an opportunity to make them permanent, and we heard in the State of the Union President Biden outline his commitment to doing so. So we're really excited to get to work to get that done. Thank you.
Nick?
I want to ask a topic about some slightly off-topic news. Speaker Johnson says that he's going to invite Benjamin Netanyahu to speak before the House. Will you go to that speech, and do you support this invitation?
I'm going to defer to Chairman Aguilar and Whip Clark on that question.
You know, we are just learning this news of this invitation, and each member will make their own evaluation. But my message to Speaker Johnson would be, we want to talk about national security. We have an aid package to Israel. We have critical humanitarian aid that is needed for innocent civilians in Gaza. And we have a war in Ukraine that the United States has said, we will stand by and be your ally. And there is one group in Congress that is holding up that national security supplement that is needed desperately by the people of Ukraine and so many of our other allies, and that is the House GOP. That bill needs to come to the floor. So you can invite whomever you like to come and address Congress, but do the work that needs to be done. The bill is passed. It is before us. We have put our signatures before the Republicans. They know if that bill comes to the floor, it will pass overwhelmingly. So that's our message. Our message is bring the National Security Supplement to the floor. If we pass it tomorrow, it can go straight to the president's desk. So that is where we think the priority should be for Speaker Johnson and the GOP conference.
I think the whip said it well with respect to your particular question, and certainly first that I heard what you described, but I think the whip is right. The Republicans, what they've done over the course of the last few months, wasting time, is shameful. And they ought to put that bill on the floor for an up or down vote. Yes.
If I can follow up on that, there's 183 current signatures on the discharge petition by Congressman McGovern that would bring that Senate-passed bill to the floor. You still need some of your own members to do it. So how do you pressure Speaker Johnson to do it when some of your own members don't want that bill as well? And is there any reach out to the Republicans to move on that?
Well, I'll yield to Chair Aguilar and Whip Clark. I would just simply say that, again, the Speaker faces a binary choice as to whether or not he puts on the floor a bill that has strong bipartisan support out of the United States Senate. 70 senators, Republicans, Democrats, voted for that national security supplemental package. It deserves an up or down vote. You referenced the discharge petition, which, of course, has a number of members who have signed it, 100, I think you said 83, and more members every day are joining. Yeah, the whip corrected me, as the whip should, 185. And more members are signing that petition each and every day. But fundamentally, at the end of the day, I think, as I said, the Speaker faces this binary choice. It's a question best posed to him as to how long he will hold hostage critical aid to our allies, Ukraine, Israel, and in the Indo-Pacific. Okay. Final question? Thank you all so much. Appreciate it.